Welcome to the Red Eye Perspective. I'm your host, Mohammad Al-Wishahi. Hi, everyone. This is Mohammad Al-Wishahi from Red Eye Perspective, a Red Eye consultant publication, audio publication, and soon to be video publication as well. This is one of 3 episodes that we plan to tape for your enjoyment. And we focused on the first 2 episodes on impressions of a CIA officer, undercover, children of what they saw, what they didn't see, what they felt, what they didn't feel. And today, to complete the series, I have my beloved son. Hi, Yezen.
Hi, Babak. How are you?
I'm doing well, thank you, son. So you probably heard about what we did for the previous 2 episodes with your sisters, and today is your turn, buddy. And the topic is children of undercover officers, and doesn't have to be exclusive to the CIA, but many American officers who are undercover and who have families and children. They probably can benefit from this conversation as well. How we dealt with it. Maybe there is a benefit to them to kind of see how our experience was. So with that, would you mind taking a few seconds to introduce yourself?
Sure thing. My name is Yezen. I'm the youngest of 3. I'm currently 20 years old. I'm in college right now. I'm a junior, and I'm studying government and international politics.
Excellent. Thank you for that. So, you know the topic. You probably heard your sister's podcasts. So for me, it's a very important thing that I get insights into your mind, and especially in those years where your expressions were not as elaborate or as clear to you. If you can take me with you on a journey into your mind as a child, what did you see? What did you hear? What did you feel or not about your dad's work?
Sure. Growing up, I really didn't notice anything. Nothing was out of the ordinary to me. When we first moved overseas, I was 3. So I was barely conscious. So to me, growing up, that was my life, living overseas. For a while, I honestly thought that was what most kids did, was just move around every few years. So I never really had a question about anything. Everything that I was told about your work and everything I saw made sense to me. I really had no reason to question anything. There was no outliers or anything like that that gave me any sort of hints or made me suspicious of anything. So really throughout all of my entire childhood up until you told me, I really had no clue.
Oh, wow. That's great. That means we've done something right. All right, brother. Yeah, so it's good that you're at least didn't have any certain let's say questions that you couldn't have answers for. Whatever you were told, you thought it kind of makes sense.
Yeah, I trusted it. I had no reason not to believe you. As I said, everything made sense down to the people we met and where you worked and everything like that. It was streamlined. It seemed perfect. So,
okay. Well, from my perspective, I can give you this. At least a year or so before I actually sat down with you and I told you about what I did, I could see your curiosity building up. I could see it in the wording of certain questions, but you were such a respectful, kind, sweet, and graceful human being, still are, who wouldn't really want to put somebody under like the spotlight. So you were very kind, but I could see it. And leading to the day you and I sat down and we talked about what I did for a living at that time, I expected something from you afterwards, which is based on your amazing curiosity. So can we talk about a little bit about the day I told you and what was that for you like?
Yes, that was a really fun day. We woke up in the morning and you had told me we needed to go run errands. So I said, okay, cool. We were transitioning between posts at the time, and to me that made sense. We always had to run errands during that time. But you told me you had to go to the doctor, and you told me to put a nice shirt on, like a polo or a button up or something. And honestly, even up until then, I didn't have a question about that specifically, like the doctor or anything, because when we were overseas and we would go to like the health unit at the embassy, you said put something nice on. And to me, it made sense because, maybe we were going to the embassy or something. So even that had no sort of question to me. Um, and so we ended up going, we were driving. And at some point, we were driving down this road and you pointed at a sign to me. And you said, Yezen, what does that sign say? And I said, I stuck my head out and I was like, it said George Bush Center for Intelligence. So I was like, whoa, is that the CIA? And you were like, yeah, it is. And I was like, cool. I thought we were just passing it. I thought it happened to be where we were going and that's where it was. And then you got into the turn lane and you turned into it. And I was like, whoa, what's happening? Uh, and you told me that you had a tour set up for the day.
Hmm.
So I was like, this is so cool. Who gets to go to like this place? Like it's so rare, whatever.
Hmm.
Uh, and so we got in, we got our badges and we went in and you're explaining things to me as we're walking into the building. And the only thought I had was, okay, how does he know this? Because he doesn't work here. I figured someone else was giving us the tour.
Hmm.
It wasn't until but like up until this point, I didn't really think, okay, maybe he works here. It
Hmm.
wasn't until we sat down in the cafeteria and you like looked at me and you said, hey, I don't work for the State Department. I work for the CIA. That's when I actually knew.
Hmm. And how was that for you?
Very overwhelming in a very good way. I think I was smiling really big. My eyes started to water a little bit
Hmm.
because it was kind of shocking information. Um, but it was very enlightening because a lot of things started to make sense.
Hmm.
Um, and a lot of the questions I had as a kid were pretty quickly answered. Um, but with that, a lot more questions sort of came up right away. So, yeah, I think it was a very special moment. And I think there was one point we were walking through the halls and I saw you in a very different light, in a very good way. But it also not only described a lot more about my life and the life we've lived up until that point, it showed me a lot more about you and answered a lot more questions about you that I had specifically and the way you carried yourself, especially overseas and stuff like that. So, um, yeah, it was a very, very nice feeling to be able to get all these answers finally.
Well, thank you for sharing. That day, if I could like draw an image of the way your brain and eyes were talking to each other, it would be like opening a computer motherboard and you see all the lights and they're talking to each other, all the components and transferring of data. You were going about 1,000 megabyte per millisecond trying to connect dots and information and all that stuff. That was phenomenal to see, but nonetheless, you didn't freak out. Now, let me give you an inside story from my perspective. I cannot tell you how nervous I was, even though I looked like, calm and whatever, but I was nervous. I was nervous about your reaction.
Mm,
I
okay.
had a hope that you would find it cool. Okay. But I wasn't sure because every person is different. I've already, by then, already told both of your sisters, and both of them had a very pleasant reaction. But overall, every parent who works with these kind of outfits usually worry about disclosing that type of information to a dear person because always there is that sense of betrayal or lying to them or not telling them the truth and what have you. And they're always worried about that because practically there is a loved one in your life whom you've hid your true identity, I mean, not identity, true work, right? For a lot of years, right? So there's that concern all the time. But you also did not really disappoint. Your reaction was positive, was sweet, was kind, and then you were jumping. If I allowed you that moment, you would be jumping up and down in the cafeteria.
Most definitely. Yeah. I think I also had an understanding in that the work you had told us you were doing before, there was some level of secrecy to it. You were still a government official working overseas. So I understood there were things I couldn't know regardless.
Hmm.
Um, so to me, like, as you said, like I didn't ask questions because I knew there was some things I couldn't know about your work. I knew your general work of your cover, I guess. Um, But yeah, I understood what your work entailed to begin with. So I didn't feel as though I was being betrayed or anything like that. There was never any feeling of that. I
Mhm.
understood the work. It made sense to me.
Mhm. I remember I was trying to kind of impress upon you one very important point about a me blending in inside an agency that is so diverse in a country as ours in order to kind of show you in a practical way the way things worked in real life. Because when people talk about intelligence and CIA, they tend to have this fantasy picture of these Hollywood movies and what have you. And it was important for me that day to impress upon you that, and I remember you indulging me on that one because I wanted to point to you the people who are walking in the hallways,
Yeah.
all walks of life representing the American demographics, old and young, black and white, Asian, male, female, big, small, what it doesn't matter. They were all Americans. And
Yeah.
I remember telling you that if you take a sample of this demographic crowd here walking and you apply it to a parking lot of Costco or Target, you would get the same thing. So, in essence, what you're looking at is like any other agency in the United States, law enforcement, intelligence. It's these American people that you're living amongst, your neighbors, down the street, a couple of houses, 10 houses, it doesn't matter. They're all Americans. And they were all dedicated and devoted and working hard in secrecy and counting 100% on the support of their families and loved ones in order to do that, because without that, it's going to be even far more difficult. And I think you took well to the idea that it's no longer that fantasy of 007 type of movies. No, no, no. This is real people, everyday people doing really hard secret work.
Absolutely. I definitely did have that vision of it in my mind before you took me there. Um, but it made sense.
You just being a fantasy?
Yes. Yeah. Um, I didn't think it was a possibility, so I think it never really came as a possibility in my head, that you could be doing that sort of work. But it made sense. The work is so diverse; it's around the world, and the best way you could implement this and have it go successfully, like this mission of working in secret, is to have people from everywhere speaking different languages, looking different. Like it made perfect sense to me.
Yeah, yeah. So afterwards, now you know you're inside the what is it, circle of trust.
Yes, as we were leaving, we ran into someone and he mentioned that to me, and I took that to heart, like really deeply. It meant a lot.
Yeah, yeah. That guy, he visited us when you were like only a few weeks old, so he knew you even when you were much younger.
Oh, I didn't know that. That's awesome.
Yeah, yeah, he's a good man. So afterwards, we had many conversations, whenever it's possible in the right place and timing. But tell me about your impression of what happened afterwards. Were you satisfied with the answers? Were you not? Or were you having certain concerns? Were you having certain worries about me, about you, about your life?
I think I just didn't know about it. I think a lot of my interest in a lot of the questions I ask, I think I definitely asked you a lot of questions. But I think a lot of it was just trying to understand what you did, because now what I knew about your work from before turned out not to be true, not be entirely true. So now I had to kind of rework my image and understanding of what you did. So I think a lot of the beginning questions was just trying to understand the work,
Mhm,
as a general thing.
mhm,
Um, and once I started understanding that, yes, there were some worries, I think I understood there's a lot more safety and security involved, which also answered my questions a lot about how we sort of, no pun intended, operated when we were overseas, because you were very specific about privacy and security and knowing your surroundings, being vigilant, stuff like that. Um, so yes, there was some worry, but I think I had full trust and confidence in you. I mean, in my head, you were doing it for so long, and seemingly hadn't had any hiccups that I had heard of. So I was like, yeah, I think you're doing just fine at it. So I knew you could handle yourself completely fine in that.
mhm, mhm. Well, thank you for the trust and confidence. I appreciate that. Now, let me tell you about what I felt afterwards. I was like putting my finger on the pulse the whole time, watching you, keeping track of what you're saying, what you're doing, because I was still looking for that moment that you might still freak out.
Mhm.
I was still, and continually check back with you to make sure that you're okay. Make sure that there's no overwhelming thoughts that are not being addressed, and make sure that your discretion's still intact. That, just because I told you, suddenly you're gonna get on the internet and tell the whole world, right?
Mhm.
So checking back and forth with you in sort of open way helped me also calm my nerves down. That he's okay. He's doing okay. He's not upset. He's not freaking out. He's not, losing his discretion, all that. So that was my perspective in the aftermath of telling you, because I wanted to make it sort of cute and funny and sort of interesting the way we entered the headquarters, because I knew you would be like interested, like how the heck are we going into this building and why?
Yeah.
So afterwards, I could see again the gadgets in your brain kind of communicating and computing. What about that guy? What about this lady? And who's that one? No, 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 no. All these questions are trying to connect the dots and kind of paint the whole picture in a different light.
Yes. Yeah. Um, I'm curious for you, was it more relieving letting us know, or was it more stressful because now you had to keep your finger on the pulse and watch me? Because now I know, and that's a lot more dangerous in some aspects.
It was both. So I transitioned. So from the beginning, I was very nervous for the reasons I just explained. When I told you, I was really closely monitoring your reactions in order to make sure that you are okay. And then the phase after that was making sure that you are accepting the idea and living with it, but also not losing the discretion. However, after that, when I was comfortable that everything is okay and seems seemingly normal, then I felt a little bit of relief. Why? Because withholding that type of information from you guys, look, the scenario to me was like, okay, I go on a mission, I get killed, right? Suddenly, some complete stranger knocks at the door and say, "Hi, my name is John Smith. I'm a colleague of your late father, and here I'm telling you that he wasn't really with this outfit. He was actually with this other outfit." That fear, you knowing about your dad through a complete stranger, that really made me lose sleep. And I couldn't wait for you, respectively, you and your siblings, to be at the right time so I can trust your discretion and understand that you are able to handle such a thing as long as we are, again, on the state side. That was important for me that if I disclose that information, we are at home, not some, foreign land, and that I afford you and extend to you every attention and time you might need in order to accept the idea and understand it and answer all your questions in as much, of course, in as much as I'm allowed to answer. So yeah, it was a big relief eventually that, oh my God, I can breathe now. Everything seems to be okay.
Yeah, I'm not gonna lie. For a few months afterwards, that was one of the thoughts in my head of understanding why you told us. Was because I knew the work, I understood the work was dangerous eventually, and that fear I could imagine is very debilitating because now I don't get to see my father, God forbid, and I'm finding out something totally different. Um,
Mm.
but I really appreciate that you took the time to give me like the space to ask questions and speak because I think you knew I was like a pretty curious child about everything. But I think it was very helpful. I feel like if I hadn't been able to, these questions would have built up and it could have led to something, not like me releasing anything, but like it would have been like a heavy weight sort of.
Oh, absolutely. Definitely. You would be burdened. So using that word now, that reminded me of something because I did not want to tell you as earlier, because I don't want to burden you with such a responsibility. That's not fair. Okay. So I was really in the middle of these two options, to tell or not to tell. Okay. And telling it early enough in your lives would have been a huge burden on you, and you wouldn't be able to handle it, right? Telling it too late, not knowing our fate, when is our time to go, right? Because it was a gamble, literally. Because I mean, we're not really fighting in battlefield like soldiers, right? But we had colleagues, we lost them for a car accident, some freak car accident in the middle of, God knows, Dushanbe or something like, right? It wasn't really predictable because you are taking risks all the time. The fact that we survived for the majority of the missions that we went on is really a good attribute to the amazing effort that the agency puts in our training, right? And there's a bit of luck, of course, and a bit of the officer's performance, him or herself as well, kind of plays into that. You do your part. Yeah, you act like you were trained properly, right? So that helps a lot. But who knows with fate, man? Some freak accident somewhere is beyond your control. So I was really rushing against the time, if you will, trying to
Cool.
do it at time, but that at the right time, it was not easy balance to keep for all these years.
Cool.
All right, now here we are. Can you talk to me about your interest in the outfit after that?
Yeah, the news came to me at a very interesting time because I was 14, entering high school, and I was trying to figure out what I wanted to do with the rest of my life, what I wanted to study in college. I'd always taken an interest in your work, and even as a kid, part of me wanted to be a diplomat in the traditional sense of what I knew beforehand.
Mhm.
But I'm also not necessarily like a desk job type of person. And the operations aspect of your work really like piqued my interest.
Mhm.
Um, I think eventually that's where a lot of my questions to you came from, was trying to understand the work more and to see if I could fit into it and if it was something I would enjoy.
Mhm.
I think eventually I expressed that interest to you, and you were supportive, but you also gave me a lot of sort of warning signs of the things you faced and the things you struggled with. Um, I think for a while I was very stubborn about wanting to, and you had also expressed that openly about like, hey, be cautious. I don't think this is something you might enjoy. Um, the bureaucracy and stuff like that. And I think for a while I was pretty persistent on it, but over time I sort of realized, it really isn't for me. I found another pathway that I wanted to go down that suited me better and something I knew I would enjoy. But yeah, for a very long time, I was definitely interested in wanting to join the office.
I cannot tell you how stressed I was during those days because I could not allow myself to prevent you from pursuing the future that you want, right? But at the same time, it was my duty to pave that path for you with the facts, not the fantasies, not whatever you see on TV and whatever. It would be fact and be more realistic and brutally realistic. So you are ready for that. And if you still chose to go with it, I would have supported you anyways. But I was really scared for you and for your future because I know you very well. Oh, at least I think I do. And I didn't want your dreams to be broken against the realities of bureaucratic life and all that stuff. I mean, again, the mission is extremely rewarding. The mission is fantastic to be honored to serve. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, there's a few moments of those where every one of us who served across the spectrum of all agencies and branches of the military, you feel honored, of course. But at the same time, if you are not able to absorb the other bureaucratic hurdles, then you're not going to be happy. And
Absolutely.
lucky for us in this day and age that we are able to afford our children a little more, elaborate list of choices where they can hopefully be happier with whatever choice that they make for themselves. With that, I think we are all closely running out of time, but I want to give you again the opportunity if you have any thoughts or questions you wanted to chat with me about, and then over to you.
Um, First and foremost, I'm just extremely proud of you and the work you were able to do. I think we've all said it to you, but it's true, and it's the more I got to learn about it, the more prideful I was because that's not easy, keeping it from your family and doing the work itself it's a lot to bear, and I think you handled it amazingly. You handled us and my questions very well as well. Um, but yeah, massive respect to the work.
Thank
Just
you.
because it doesn't fit for me doesn't mean I don't have the respect. I think these people put a lot on the line for this, and it's extremely commendable. So
May I interject very quickly before you continue with that? But I just want to, again, the caveat is, and I told the same thing to your siblings, is that I was one of tens of thousands of Americans, men and women across the spectrum of the demographics of the United States, serving every day without any, like selfless serving, right? So it was just one of many, and I know and I have trust in that, in all of them doing their best to serve their country. So just caveat.
Yeah.
Back to you.
Um, I'm also very thankful for the life it gave us. I think the experiences I got to have were nothing compared. Getting to learn about all these different cultures overseas was a blessing. And it really opened my eyes and gave me a very different perspective to, the colleagues I see at college nowadays and stuff. So overall, yeah, I'm proud and I'm grateful for everything that the work gave us. So.
Thank you, son. We were all blessed to have such an opportunity, and it really allowed us to explore so many things that would have been otherwise beyond our reach. Anything else on your mind you would like to share now that you are an adult in college? Or is there anything that you would like to share?
Not really. I'm grateful I found a different path, as you said about serving, and it's something I did want to do. Um, I'm glad I found a different path to serve within the government, and obviously that's what I'm studying. Um, but yeah, that's pretty much it.
Fantastic. Likewise, I'm very proud of you. I'm very proud of your maturity that really showed up way much earlier than your peers. I'm also thankful for all your support afterwards. We spent a year together alone when I was posted abroad, and you were my partner in a lot of things over there, and we kind of enjoyed kind of talking about certain things sometimes when the time and space was permissible. I am very proud of how you went through the process of selection for your path forward, and I pray that everything goes well for you and to your favor. Finally, I just want to close with the following remarks. Your support, your siblings' support made a huge difference in my life. And me being burdened with holding on to that cover for the protection of my mission, my colleagues, and my agency, and also my family was really a huge deal. And when I got the opportunity to open up to you guys, it was really a big relief. And all of you showed me grace, kindness, and support. And I'm very, very thankful for that. I'm sure some of these themes that we talked about today will resonate with a few of the colleagues out there who are still in active duty across the United States government branches and agencies. And I hope that we were sort of a help to them in learning lessons. How do you deal with the burden of operating undercover? And how do your children also go through a lot of trepidation trying to understand and trying to kind of make sense of the stories you tell them? Everybody is, we're in population wise, we're on Earth, we're getting smarter every day. You cannot fool children like you used to fool them before. So they're all smarter than us. And I don't know, this must be very challenging for them. Over to you.
Yeah, definitely. I think, we're family. The support comes regardless. In my head, I had a lot of trust in you and knew that no matter what was going on or what was happening, it was happening for a reason. So, but yeah, absolutely. Support is always there.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it. With that, folks, thank you for taking the time to listen to our podcast. Today, our guest was Yezen Al-Washahi, who's my son, and we talked about the feelings and thoughts and ideas a child of an undercover CIA officer go through, and the things that they have to go through in understanding the cover, or when the cover is just completely removed. Thank you for taking the time. This was Mohammad Al-Washahi, your host for Red Eye Perspective. Have a wonderful day. Thank you for listening to the Red Eye Perspective. For more information on training courses, consulting services, and speaking events, please visit redeyeconsultant.com.